I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and perimenopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. You're tuned in to the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and today I've got a really exciting guest for you. Something totally different from what I usually talk about on the show, the kind of guest that I have never had before. I've got a woman who is a storyteller, an artist, a rock star, a writer. I mean, so many great things. Her name is Satori Shakoor, and she is a visionary storyteller, artist, and social entrepreneur. And as she says in the interview, I added the rock star bit. You bet I did. So when I got the email asking if I'd like to bring Satori onto the show, what struck me, or what stood out to me really, was that she was once a member of one of the greatest rock bands in history, Parliament-Funkadelic, or P-Funk. And of course, I had to have her on the show. But what I didn't know at the time, but I know now, was the depth of this beautiful woman's experience, which she shares in a stand-up storytelling concert film that she recently produced, acted, and sung in, called Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. So the documentary is wonderful. As she would tell me if she was here with me now still, she'd say, no, it's a stand-up storytelling concert film, not a documentary. So let me correct myself. Satori and I talked about a broad range of things, many things that are actually in the film itself. I asked her why she wanted to tell her story. What was it about now? And she wanted to really share essentially the experience of perimenopause so that, as she says, the women who are younger can have an expectation, because when you don't know what's coming, it feels so catastrophic. I'm struck when I watch the film about the stories on repeat about how our society quiets a woman's pain. We talk about that in this episode and all of the roles that a woman is expected to play in her life. I mean, we cover it. Of course, I asked about P-Funk and what the tour bus was like, what the shows were like, what George Clinton is like. I asked all those questions as a music lover would, and she answers them without hesitation. And I found this, certainly the film is all of the things you would want in a film that you're watching. It's heartbreaking, it's mesmerizing, it's uplifting, it's breathtaking, it's entertaining. And I think it just checks all the boxes for how I want to spend my time. Again, it's called Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. Let me introduce my guest appropriately. Satori Shakoor is a dynamic storyteller, multidisciplinary artist, and accomplished social entrepreneur, recognized as a 2017 Kresge Literary Arts Fellow. Her career began with acclaim as a background singer and recording artist, touring with George Clinton and Parliament-Funkadelic as one of the iconic brides of Funkenstein. She later broadened her artistic pursuits, becoming an actor, comedian, and television comedy writer. As a founding member and catalyst for the award-winning Obsidian Theatre Company in Toronto, Satori helped establish Canada's leading culturally diverse theatre company in 1999. Her most recent accomplishment is The Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale, a stand up storytelling concert film that you can find and watch yourself at satorishakoor.com. I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode. I just really, what struck me after I spoke with Satori is that I got to kneel at the feet of an incredibly wise woman who's got a hell of a story to share. And I recognized her as the grandmother's wisdom, which I think the world is desperately in need of. So have a listen to the conversation I have with my guest, Satori Shakoor. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Thanks for listening. I want to introduce AGZ from AG1, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. It's a melatonin-free formula with clinically studied ingredients like valerian, ashwagandha, saffron, and magnesium L-threonate to support your body's natural sleep cycle. As you know, I've been using AG1 in my morning routine for years, and now AGZ is my evening game changer. I love the chocolate mint flavor, frothed with cold almond milk and loaded up with ice. I sip it while I'm journaling, reading, meditating, or stretching, whatever thing I choose for my nightly sleep hygiene. It's the perfect signal to my brain to slow down. If you're ready to turn down the stress and focus on the rest, head to the link in the show notes. drinkag1.com/Fiona Lovely. Again, this link will be in the show notes. You'll get a free frother with your first purchase of AGZ. I love it. This is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and I could not be more excited about the guest I have with me today. Welcome to the show, Satori Shakoor. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Fiona.
It's a pleasure
to be here.
Oh, yay. We have so much fun stuff to talk about. Okay, first of all, I want to say Satori is a storyteller, a writer, an artist, a social entrepreneur, and a rock star. You're the bomb. I love it. And not just because I've watched this amazing film, which you call a stand-up storytelling concert film called Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale.
Yes.
Glorious. Why now? Why did you want to tell the story now?
Well, I wanted to tell it sooner, but I felt like I had to tell it after I had gotten to post on the other side to postmenopause. Because when I was going through perimenopause, when I asked my mother, she didn't remember. When I asked other women, they either were reluctant to say anything. I refused to go through menopause because at that time they didn't want to age themselves. It's often considered taboo. There's stigma around it, hysterical. Women are pigeonholed and
Sure.
talked about negatively. So she just didn't remember, and a lot of women weren't able to tell me what it is I'm going through. So I had to go through it alone. And I promised myself at that time that when I got to the other side, I would write something to leave for women coming behind me. And my writing turned into a play, a performance that I filmed over a period of 3 days. And I thought I'll turn this into a film because I do not have the energy it's a very exhausting piece emotionally. And I'm not willing, to do 8 shows a week, 7 shows a week and tour it. So let me make it a film and available to the world. That would be a better
Way to do it.
contribution.
Yeah. Well, and I think not only do women have all of this baggage around menopause, for sure, this is what we talk about on this show,
Mhm.
is we do a little bit of shit disturbing on this show, Satori, so don't hold back. And I want to bring a light to women's stories. And quite often when I have a guest on the show, it's another female expert that's working with women in this space. And so it's such a breath of fresh air to have you here telling your story. And it's a hell of a story. Holy cow.
Yeah,
How did you choose what to put in and what to?
that was
Yeah.
so hard
Mhm.
because, of course, I have a big life. We all do. So how do you take? So I was really wanted to focus on the perimenopause, those moments, and then those moments sort of overlapped with lifing. And then it
Mhm.
was triggered by my trip going back to Hawaii, which I kind of have buried that part of myself. So I went, of course, it took me 5 years to write what you saw on the screen. And
Mhm.
then we edited a couple of scenes out, which are really hilarious, but you know, you don't want it to be too long. So I went to first Ann Eskridge, a playwright here in Detroit, and she helped me organize the material. And then I took out what I didn't need to have to tell the story. Maybe I just put it in there because it was funny or because I lived it or whatever. But I kind of tried to just focus on the woman going through perimenopause, attempting, having quit smoking, and then
Mhm.
having her life not be what she wanted it to be as a secretary because she had dreams of being an artist, a writer, and having her own TV show. So I wanted to start the film right there with being 42
Yeah.
and having that challenge of I want to do what I want to do. I want to be free. And then what is this happening to me? And oh my God, I've got all these withdrawals and then things start to look good and then boom, it all comes crashing down when I
Yeah.
get a call from my mother saying that my son had been injured in a car accident. And then I have to go back and
Mhm.
reflect on that part of my life that I kind of buried or
Mhm.
was afraid to fully confront. And of course, again, it's a question about what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a mother, what's the perfect mother, how are mothers supposed to be, and how mothers truly are, what affects our mothering, how do we love our children 24/7? What's postpartum depression? Another thing women don't talk about. So I really wanted to pick out the parts of my life and share them to see to really encourage women, inspire women to talk about their lives, talk about what it is to be a woman, what it is to be female, because we often don't. And so we don't talk about our periods. We don't talk
Mhm.
about our PMS unless it's comedy. We don't talk about postpartum depression. We don't talk about depression. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about our relationships. Always it's the man's fault, or there's some way we want to promote ourselves as good. And we definitely don't want to talk about menopause because that's when the male gaze, in society, the system of maleness tells
Mhm.
us we're totally irrelevant. You mean your breasts aren't perky anymore? They're on your shoes. You mean to tell me you can't bust out a baby? Oh
Mhm.
well, go sit in a rocket chair, dear. Put
Yeah.
those glasses on the tip of your nose, and your
Mhm.
life is over. And go babysit the grandchildren. But for me, my life didn't look like that. My life
Mm-mm.
looked like every year I would get better, I would get more experience, I would have more mastery, and I felt greater energy and less afraid. And I was like, well, why is my life not reflecting this narrative? Why am I being a bad girl and going for my dreams at different decades and stages of my life? And I just
Yes.
settled on it's not true.
Wow, I love that. There's so much empowerment in what you just said. So let's just give a little bit of a background here. I know when I was watching the concert film, I remember specifically the scene. I won't spoil it too much, but the scene where you're sitting in the car at the gas station with your first husband, And is that right? I think, I
Yes.
don't know if you, okay.
Yes, he's my first husband.
Okay, I just didn't know if I should name his name or not. Well, just please go watch the film. It's so good. But in that scene and then the scenes that came after it, here's what I kept thinking. Why do we have a society where we keep quieting women's pain? And you have spotlighted in all of these scenes the pain that you were experiencing, and you were shrinking away from it and pushing towards it, and whatever you felt you needed to do in that moment. That was something I was really struck with as I was watching the film.
Yeah, that's why I called it Confessions, because they were all the things that I did not say, lies I told myself and the world and my husband and the world around me to fit in, to be acceptable, to not go against the grain. Even though, of course, I did go against the grain in certain aspects of my life, but in the ones that I felt had the most risk, I was quiet. And silence is a killer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I had that opportunity years later in the hospital, which was my confessional booth, really, um, in the waiting room, the ICU waiting room, I had the opportunity to share with he says, "Oh, that was a long time ago." I know it was a long time ago, but I want to tell you this. And then things start to come together in that reflective space, in that sterile space of the ICU, that place where you're just there with yourself and the person that you love in the back hanging on to their life. There is no small talk. Even amongst the people in the waiting room that have the loved ones in the back that are most dear, you have all the extra people that come in at first, the friends, and but then you're left alone. And then
Yeah.
you have to look at you in your life.
Oh,
But then he's there, and I can tell him the truth about what I feared to tell him then, because it was my child was 6 days old. He was. I'm not trying to spoil the film or
it's
anything,
okay. Yeah.
but I had to be quiet because when you come out of the hospital with your 6-day-year-old baby and you're
Yeah.
with your husband, it's supposed to be like the movies. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be such a happy time. It's supposed to be glorious, and it wasn't that way for me. So I didn't say anything so that I could at least pretend.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking while I was watching that scene was this must have been during an era of where men were less accountable for their behaviors.
The 80s.
Yeah, that's what I guessed, late 70s or early 80s. And I mean, there was a lot of things going on that were we didn't look directly at that would never be tolerated now. And
Right.
also, you and I would never tolerate that now because of the wise women we've become.
No, no, I wouldn't tolerate it now at all.
No, I'm betting on you every single time.
So my third husband is getting the benefit and the
Yeah, he
gift
is.
of the real me.
Okay, I love this. Well, let's lighten this conversation just a tiny bit, and we'll come back down and talk about some of
Mhm,
these other things you've just mentioned. But
mhm.
I want to say to the listeners, I get, and to you as well, I get so many requests for guests that want to come on the show. And by far, I end up choosing about maybe 1 in 20 that come through. But when I saw the email come through for you, and it said that you were previously a backup singer for, or one of the brides of Funkenstein. So a background singer, excuse me, for Parliament-Funkadelic. I went, you have got to be kidding me. Girlfriend wants to come on my show? Heck yeah. I don't even know what she wants to talk about, but yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah,
So
yes.
you've had this beautiful rock star experience that so few people would experience as a young woman. Can you tell us about that, please?
Oh my God, you don't have enough time.
Give us your best.
First of all, let me start out by saying I started out as a classical violinist. I majored in art song in voice. So funk was like a whole different genre. I was living in New York at the time, from Detroit, moved to New York to pursue Broadway and do an album. And my friend Overton, who I knew since I was 15 in Detroit, was also living in New York. And he said, there are going to be auditions for this new girl group. You ought to go back to Detroit and audition. So I ripped the cellophane off of Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome. And when I listened to the music, actually took my snobbery away, I was blown away by the musicianship, by the creativity. I could hear classical influence with Bernie Worrell. I could hear gospel. It was just a hodgepodge of music that really moved my soul. So I borrowed the money. I think a plane fare was $70 at the time.
Wow.
I borrowed the money, flew back to Detroit, and they had hired somebody. And so it's like an audition, any audition. I was used to auditioning, you get it or you don't. Thank you, or we'd like to see you in the callback or whatever. They'd hire somebody. So it was like, it was good to see my family. Before I left, Dawn Silva, one of the brides, called me and said, well, if this woman doesn't work out, we'll call you and we'll fly you back on, our dime. So I got a call on Wednesday. I remembered it was a Wednesday. And she said, we'd like you to come and be in the group. You know, what is all your information? Your plane ticket will be at the airport. Remember when we could get our plane tickets?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I walked
Well,
into
we
my
could smoke cigarettes on flights. Never mind.
exactly. And I was working at New York discotheque as a secretary for these rich playboys who they just had, it was a toy to them, the discotheque. And I walked into Maurice's office and I said, oh, Maurice, I'm leaving. I'm going to sing with the biggest black rock band in the world. He said, oh, good. When are you leaving? I said, now. He
Now.
said, you can't leave now. You have to order that Rolls Royce for me. Look for that. He wanted this canary Rolls Royce like Diana Ross had driving around.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that was what my job. I was going to find that canary yellow Rolls Royce for him, and I said no, I'm leaving, and I got on the plane. I was met at Detroit Metro Airport by Archie and Ramon and Brent, and I knew it was them. They had the One Nation scarves. It was like three aliens coming at me. We we drove to the rehearsal hall. They opened the door, and there's Ray Davis, the one with the deep voice, and say, "Tear the roof off the mother." There
Oh,
he was, and just it looked like a symphonic orchestra. That's how many men it was, and then there were about four women,
and you were the
and I
brides.
walked in, and started learning the material. A week later, I'm on stage in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in front of 10,000 people. And so
Wow.
I went from being like a cover singer in a band, auditioning on Broadway, from being
There's Bootsy Collins.
there's Lucy Collins, there's
There's
all
George
these
Clinton.
others, there's all these other stars, and roadies with our costume, people who took care of our costumes, people chasing our limos, uh, and
Wow.
can you touch my baby? And you eat at McDonald's, and it was like a culture shock.
I guess.
But it was such a wonderful training. But I felt like Paris Hilton. What's a washing machine? Because when I left the group and was
Yep.
singing, I was like, well, where's the roadies?
Oh,
Where are the what?
yes.
So, but I learned so much just I learned so much in terms of performance. I learned projection. George was always teaching, whether he knew it or not. He said, look, if there are five people in the audience, you have to perform even more than if there were 5,000 because they came. Yeah, because a lot of
Wow.
times we would roll in to a town and people didn't believe we were there, the smaller towns. So we had to go straight to the radio station. And I remember it was Atlanta, the Fox Theater, and 500 people showed up out of 5,000 that could have been there. And and we were all like, oh, 500 people. Okay, this is how privileged we sounded. Like 500 people. 500 people was more than I had ever performed for in my previous performance life. That would have
Yes.
been like, and he says, no. And so he gave more. And then he would say, if the people aren't moved, you didn't move them. It's your responsibility. And so when I got it, was in theater, and the actress was saying, "Oh, that's a terrible audience. Look at them." And I would tell them, well, if they're not moved, it's because we're not doing our job. And they would pick out the people. Oh, look, in theater. Oh, look at her. She fell asleep. Did you see that guy over there? No. All I saw were the people who were applauding and having a good time.
Yeah. Wow.
So I
And I
learned a
hear,
lot.
yeah, and I hear the house lights are so bright that you often can't see the crowd. Is that true?
Yeah, you often can't see the crowd, but sometimes George would bring the lights up. But you can see the first maybe 2 or 3 rows. And although the people were grooving, I mean, the music was mesmerizing, hypnotizing.
Still
And
is.
so it still
It
is.
still is.
It's
Yeah.
still, I listen to it at least once a week, one tune. And I can't believe how it's just, but they were grooving with us, but I would be entertained by the audience and the way the audience was getting into the music. I remember looking out into the audience. There was this big woman with these big breasts, and there were like 3 men around her, and everybody was grooving, and she was grooving. She was in the music, and I saw one man on either side lift her breasts out of her top like all praises. And
Wow.
she did it was all part of the
Yes.
the
Yeah. The
moment.
experience.
She didn't even notice, I don't think,
Well, first
or
of
she
all,
didn't care.
those are some big boobies, number one. And number two, this was the 70s. So we are talking about a lot of cocaine.
Yeah,
Well, the
yes,
things
lots.
yes, the things you must have seen on the road.
Yes, saw a lot of things on the road, lots of things
And you were in a bus, right? You weren't
on a
flying around.
bus. The bus was a theater.
I'm
Lots of
sure.
things on the bus, and I hated when our bus broke down because we had to ride on the guys' bus. So when we rode on the guys' bus, there were groupies on the guys' bus. So there was all this activity happening, and
Activity.
groupies getting dropped off at a town they didn't start at. There were contests for dancers, and this gay young man came on the road with us on the bus, and the guys were just, oh my God, we can't handle this. But eventually the guys started acting, oh girl, the guys started being funny. And then when they would play porn,
Yes.
the gay guy was watching the man in and so they shut down porn
Oh my
on the
goodness.
bus.
I figured you were going to tell me that he started riding on your bus, on the girls' bus.
No, he was on the men's bus. No, he was on the men's
He
bus.
was on the men's bus. Oh, well, I tell
But
you.
it was a love hate. They shut
Yes.
down all the porn because we don't want to sit here with this man watching that man. We're watching the woman, okay? So
Of course. Of course. So you went, how old were you during these years?
21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
Oof. Girlfriend, you went from that to your first husband leaving you with all his kids from other women while he was out not working, doing God knows what. My goodness, what a shift. What happened in those years? How did you end up there?
Well, my husband was a musician. He was kind of a groupie for P-Funk. A lot of folks in Detroit would hang around United Sounds studio trying, wanting to get George's attention, wanting to show the music. And he was one of them. And I remember he took me to breakfast one morning and wanted me to listen to his music. I said, "This just sounds like a band in the basement." He was very offended.
I
What do
bet.
you mean? And well, it did. So then when P Funk crashed, when the empire started to fall, I just needed something to save me. And he was in my life, and he, by this time, was very attracted to me, and he was attractive. So we got together, and and I got pregnant. And when I was going to, when I wanted to get married, he wasn't ready to get married. He was Muslim. He had 4 children by 2 other wives that he wasn't legally married to, but and so he would he would they would all of their children would come to my house and stay 3 4 days. I just felt trapped. Just and my baby was born, I felt so trapped. I felt unsupported by him. But this was what men got to do. Men got to have side chicks and other
Yep.
things like that. And so I just felt oppressed and unhappy. And I began to rebel in different ways. He wasn't working, and I just began to rebel in different ways. And I joined like a tantric cult, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and began to feel more, but it was just a transference.
Mm-hmm.
But I began to feel more free, and eventually I got the courage to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, during that time, you talked in the concert film about postpartum depression, and you
Yes.
talk about it essentially the monsters inside your head. So,
Yes.
talk about that a little bit because again, you're right. You started off this conversation saying there's these things that we don't talk about. So, let's go there. Let's talk about it.
Well, at the time, postpartum depression wasn't distinguished as
Hmm.
a medical issue. I mean, we heard about baby blues, and there were movies, The Woman in the Attic. There were different movies about it, but it wasn't talked about. Just like menopause, it's a suggestion of it, but you don't. I didn't know I had postpartum depression. It just felt like I was very sad. I wanted to sleep all the time. I didn't even know I was depressed. I just knew that I wasn't bonding with my child, which
Hmm.
was so different than what the young mothers around me, including my sister, seemed to, they seemed to be bonding with their children and enjoyed being a mother. And maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just pretending like me, but I just felt like this was me. That somehow I was missing a mother gene or somehow. And so then I started to hear myself give myself commands: throw the baby against the wall, you know, do this, do that. I had fantasies or dreams, daydreams of him flying out of his car seat or him drowning. Some
Wow.
way he was dying in my care. It was just, I couldn't tell anybody.
No.
And I was living with this fear, you know, that I would harm my child.
Yeah.
And the fear grew because I wasn't saying anything. But I
Hmm.
remember years later, my niece, when she gave birth to her son, we were having a manicure. And we were just talking to the manicurist and me, and she was talking about how she wanted to take take her son and take him back to the hospital. I'm taking him back to the hospital. Or I want to throw him against the wall.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, postpartum depression. She goes, oh my God, the doctor gave me this list of 10 things and said that if I experienced 3 to tell him. And I said, well, how many have you experienced? She said, more than 3. And so she went to the doctor and she was treated, and she got over it. She was fine.
So, we're okay. What year would this have been for you?
82, 83.
Okay, so here we are 40 some years later, and we're just barely acknowledging this. So, the amount of suffering of women, again, hiding women's pain,
Guilt.
just it's a legions of women. So interestingly enough, I have a patient who told me a story. Actually, she asked me first while she was pregnant with her second child. She said, "Okay, I know you're a hormone expert, so I had postpartum depression with my first child. I want to know, is there anything hormonally I can do to prevent it when this child is born?" And I said, "Well, that's interesting. I've never thought of it. Again, menopause medicine is where my brain is at." And so I said, "It's interesting, but I bet if you found yourself a contemporary hormone replacement therapy prescriber, there would be an answer for you." And she said, "I happen to know a nurse practitioner. I'm going to ask her." And I said, "Okay, good. Keep me posted." Long story short, nurse practitioner said, "Absolutely. We give a woman progesterone because part of what happens is when you have the placenta gets delivered after the baby is born, the placenta is what holds the progesterone. And so you've been swimming around in all this progesterone for months and months and months, and progesterone is the good stuff, let me tell you. When you deliver the placenta, you have this sharp drop off of progesterone and it feels terrible. And so women have these symptoms that are triggered, changes in the brain that make for these voices in the head that you were talking about. Anyways, so nurse practitioner prescribed my patient progesterone to take immediately after birth and to taper it down over a month. So basically, rather than it being like a sharp drop off, it's just tapered down slowly. Yeah. So the brain doesn't freak out. You don't have all these things going on in there. Interestingly enough, my patient did it. She felt great. She had no postpartum depression. Yep. 10 days after delivery, visited with the OB, and the OB said, "That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. A woman, stop taking that right now. That's negligent."
Wow.
So even from within our own ranks,
Right. It's not much known about it.
no,
You know,
this was 2 years ago.
okay, so in 2023, I was invited by the Michigan Women's Commission to come talk about menopause at their
Mhm.
lunchtime hour, which over 200 employees from the state of Michigan attended. It was so well received that they began this initiative of going around the state of Michigan talking about menopause and having inviting women so they could ask a panel of doctors because doctors aren't trained to do it.
No.
They get
Mm-mm.
an hour and then that's
At
it.
it best.
Women are misdiagnosed.
Mm.
There's all kinds of things. So they had there were researchers, doctors. Halle Berry was there, the governor, and now we have a proclamation. I just got one that designates October 18th as World Menopause Day.
Menopause day.
And
Yes.
and here in Michigan, they're lobbying for health care because there's no health insurance for menopause. And a lot of the remedies cost a lot of money. And unless you have a lot of money, you're left to your own devices. You may not even know you have it. But what happened was after I understood that that was what was creating the monster that I believed was myself, I started to have empathy, more empathy. If I heard of a woman leaving her baby at a fire station, on a church step, in a garbage can, I immediately thought maybe
Understood.
she has postpartum because you just don't feel motherly or how
Mm.
mothers are supposed to feel. You're supposed to be so happy, and you all of a sudden you just understand how, and it doesn't happen that way for a lot of women.
So you talk about not just postpartum depression, but you talk a lot about menopause. In fact, this is the whole idea of the film. So
Well, the film, the idea, yes, I talk about perimenopause, menopause, addictions, quitting smoking, life challenges, how to handling it, and
Mhm.
getting back up, falling and getting back up, falling, and in pursuit of your dream. But it's a confession from a woman at this stage of life.
Mhm.
Confessions of me, a menopausal woman, not
Mhm.
confessions of menopause, but of course that comes through. But I want women to know about this younger, like men know about prostate health. They know it's going to be time to get your checkup for this when you turn this age. But I want women to let go of the shame around what it is to be female. You have reproductive cycles and you have reproductive years. And then your body says, you're released. You can go on
Yeah.
and live now without having to have a child, putting your body through life or death situation. You can now take you can take all of those years you invested in this and go do what you want to do. And women often stand up at menopause and start painting. So I know two women here in Detroit
Yeah.
that never painted before, or at least like they're painting now, selling their paintings for $10,000.
Yeah, good for them.
Or they decide, I've always been gay.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that.
you just unzip and start to be you,
Yes.
you know.
So this is one of the things I love hearing about your story is that I think we're not spotlighting the post-menopause bit all that well yet. Because, I'm teetering on menopause. I'm still technically in perimenopause, but give it another 7 months and I'll technically be menopausal. So I'm really on the edge. And I love what's coming through. Like just this wisdom and certainty and clarity. It just makes me lift my chest and go, heck yeah, I can't wait for the next 40 years. Like I'm in a way I never felt as a young woman when I was fitter and I looked better and my brain worked faster than it does now. It's totally different. Yes?
Yes. Yeah, you're free. You're owning yourself. There's not, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that, oh, oh no, I don't look cute. Oh, thank you. This whole thing, you're not apologizing for your very existence.
Does my ass look fat in these jeans?
Yeah.
Who cares? If it does, great. Have another look. It's
Yes.
juicy, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. You've let go of um, seeing yourself through someone else's lens. You own
Ooh.
yourself. You're defining yourself. And I tell people all the time we should have like a bat mitzvah. You should have a menopause mitzvah.
Oh, I
It should
love that
really, it
idea.
really should be. It's a rite of passage
Yeah, I'm
that
writing
we
that down.
ignore. You know,
Yes.
full
So
ownership.
the, a menopause mitzvah. Okay. I'm organizing this. You'll be on the guest list. Please come speak.
Yes.
So I just love it. I think even the first thing I want to say is all of those things that you just talked about is the hormones driving our behaviors in our reproductive era to be concerned about what other people think of us. So that's sort of the first thing to understand. But once the reproductive cycles have stopped and there's no longer this constant up and down waves. In fact, I have a colleague that refers to them as oceanic waves of hormones that dictate our lives. I don't, and this is new for me, Satori. Just in the last year, I'm really understanding how the quality of my life was affected because of those hormonal waves.
Yes.
I don't think we really understand that as younger women. We don't see it. We just go, oh my God, that's old and no longer useful. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is when
Yeah.
shit gets good.
Yeah. And I think we need more education. And that's another thing. The largest demographic in the United States are women in some stage of menopause.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few doctors who are educated in this field. And so they have waiting lists that are a year. Woman has to go a year. So there are websites and people specializing now in it. But I'm thinking, so when I go for my checkups at the hospital, I talk about my film, I talk about menopause,
Good.
and I said, encourage, if you're going to become a doctor, or tell some of these doctors in school to specialize in menopause, you'll have a never-ending list
Yeah.
of clients. You can go into private practice immediately
Yes,
because
exactly.
women wouldn't leave some of these
Very true.
little workshops that we had going around the state. Had their hand up, well, my doctor said don't, not to worry about it. It's nothing. Take an antibiotic. And I
Oh,
just didn't feel comfortable with her. But then who do you go to? But you
yeah.
keep pressing. And then one doctor didn't want to tell a woman that she was in menopause because she didn't want to offend her. So
Oh,
you get the women who have these male-centered brains advising women. You
yeah.
know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
have to really, there's a lot of introspection we have to do as women to free
Yes.
ourselves so we can
Yeah.
be fully ourselves. And if we're in professions that deal with women, that we can fully be ourselves and not be, this patriarchal mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about something incredibly important: your heart health. You probably already know the stark statistic. Heart disease is the number one cause of death in the United States. Now, it's widely understood that men develop heart disease earlier in life than women. But what you might not know is that this difference starts to change as women age. By the age of 65, women begin to develop heart disease at the same rate as men. Why does this happen? Well, the sources tell us that declining estrogen levels play a significant role. Estrogen has a profound impact on our cardiovascular system. It actively improves our cholesterol levels, keeps inflammation down, increases crucial blood flow around the body, and even helps to reduce damaging free radicals. Think of estrogen as a vital protector for your heart. It's important for our heart health, too, to take minerals. Certain minerals, such as magnesium and boron, are highlighted as being essential nutrients that our hearts and bodies need to function at their peak performance. When your mineral levels drop, it can lead to a decline in both your estrogen levels and your overall heart health. This is why I'm so enthusiastic about my partnership with Beam Minerals. They have formulated a fantastic way to make getting your daily electrolytes and essential minerals absolutely effortless. Forget about cumbersome pills or messy powders. Beam Minerals offers a simple solution. Just a small shot each day provides your body with the natural, plant-based support it needs. Ready to take proactive steps for your heart health and overall well-being? Head on over to beamminerals.com and don't forget to use my special code LOVELY to receive a fantastic 20% off your first order of Beam Minerals. That's LOVELY. Thanks, Beam. You know how we talk about supporting your body through every phase of life, especially menopause? Well, here's something I've actually been using, and I want to share it with you. MitoPure Longevity Gummies are the first longevity gummies that work at the cellular level, and that matters more than you might think. Here's the thing: as we move through menopause, our cells naturally make less energy. These gummies support that cellular powerhouse with clinically proven urolithin A, targeting a key hallmark of aging: mitochondrial balance. Of course, the mitochondria are those cellular powerhouses. So you can feel strong, clear, and vibrant. These gummies are sugar-free, clean label certified, and honestly, it's so much easier than taking another pill. I actually keep mine on my desk, and when that mid-afternoon slump hits, I take two. It's become my go-to instead of reaching for caffeine or a sugar hit. Longevity doesn't have to feel complicated. It starts with one daily habit. Start 2026 strong with 30% off your first month. Head to timeline.com/lovely30. That's timeline.com/lovely30 because you deserve to feel your best in every decade. It helps to understand, and I know I teach my students this, is it helps women to understand the context of medicine. It has been male centric from the start. It's paternalistic and it's patriarchal. And even the women that are women's health specialists get taught that system of judgment. That is essentially what it is. Medicine is a system of judgment that is meant to be helpful, but the women after the age of 40 have essentially been left out. And that's the problem. So that's why this ship is going to take so long to turn around. So anybody who is willing to do the work of education and advocacy like you have, is that help is welcome. And also, I love what you said about the menopausal women in the United States are the largest group. They're not paying attention to us. We're over here getting all full of protein and lifting weights and getting better looking, all the skincare we're doing, etc. Nobody's paying attention. We ride at dawn, Satori. Are you coming? Because we need to
Yes.
take over. The
Yeah.
women need to take over. The mothers and the grandmothers need, the grandmothers in particular, need to take over.
Yes. And we are. And that's why there's this big movement here to sit women down, make them barefoot pregnant again, make them
Oh.
irrelevant. Yeah.
Okay, let's not. Okay, the question I was going to ask you was about,
Now, can I just say this to your
please,
listener? And the movie is very funny.
hilarious. I love the singing parts. I love the parts where you're uh, enacting things that was like, I mean, Harry Met Sally got nothing on you, says you did a way better job. It's so good. And it was, I found myself just, it's exactly what you want a great film to be. It's like this push pull of emotions. It was, and you know, sometimes as I was watching, I was thinking, my God, this is someone's real life. And in a way, your life is like so many others, right? We just all have these stories. And I think we would do better to remember that we all have stuff in our lives that maybe we wouldn't talk about, that we think, you know, oh, that couldn't be going on. Absolutely, it is.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
I do talk about mother-daughter relationships. My mother was 50 when I was 14. So she was in menopause when I was just coming into I like boys, and she was like, I'm done with them. So everything was push and pull and clash and till I got to a certain age where we could really become friends. So I talk about that kind of relationship. So there's a lot of things that I talk about in the film,
Mm-hmm.
and relive in the film, that I think it's kind of useful for women to look at, because I have friends now who they, they're not, their relationship with their moms aren't good. And now my mother isn't here anymore. And I think to myself, I would give anything for my mother to come here and scold me.
Sure.
Anything for if any, because she's, even though she's not with us, she's always with me, and I recall things that she has said that that live now as wisdom, things
Mm-hmm.
I can use even now.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
they they were things she said that they weren't relevant at the time. They,
Disregarded. Yeah, the youth of you
yes,
disregarded it, right?
yes,
Yeah.
but it was planted, and now
Mm-hmm.
it blooms. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's what she meant by that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm looking at my notes that I took while I was watching the film, and I have a quote here that says, "Guilt follows me wherever I go."
yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I don't want to give away the film too much, but what I did in reaction to having that postpartum, I think it was probably, although I felt guilty about it, reflecting, it was a courageous act, because I think ultimately a mother is there to protect her child,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're protecting the child from yourself.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
greatest. That's the number one thing a mother, a parent does. So guilt would follow me wherever I go, and I think if we look really hard, we would find ourselves guilty as women of
Mm-hmm.
something or another, and it follows you until you confess it, until you can say what that is. And I think when I when I'm on trial in the ICU waiting room, I have to admit certain things. I have to own certain
Mm-hmm.
things. But in the owning of your humanity and your flaws and the things that you did that in reflection you know were wrong or you made a mistake, you can own those rather than appearing like I got it all together or no, it was someone else's fault. Accountability was what happens when you dismantle your guilt. Then you don't have to live with it. It doesn't have to rule your life. You can be free of it and you can forgive yourself. And then
Preach, sister.
in the
So good.
forgiving of yourself, all others are forgiven.
Oh, I love it. That, I say this on the show so much. Of course, this will be the first time you've heard me say that. This is that I remember watching Oprah in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I came home from school and I watched Oprah. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And she would say, I can feel the healing of the people that haven't yet watched this episode of what you just said. I can feel them healing. What you just said, I felt that. So you have freed women with what you've just said. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
that's the word. Thank you. Gratitude sort of takes the place of guilt.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
can say I'm grateful for this experience, for this thing. Once you've forgiven yourself, then the lesson, the maturity, the gift of that experience begins to shape your life rather than hiding from it or being guilty about it.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. I wanted to ask you what similarities you had noticed between postpartum depression and perimenopause.
Um, I think the similarities are more between PMS and perimenopause, but postpartum depression, I, it's probably bouts of depression happen during perimenopause. You feel depressed because at some level, on some, whether you know that's what you're going through, on some level, you know that there is a loss happening. What is that loss? Loss of
Mhm.
youth, loss of
Vitality.
a loss of whatever it was that belonged to your 20s and 30s. You know what I mean? You there's something now. I'm walking in a door that's
Mhm.
going to hold me accountable. I can't
Mhm.
just be this frivolous person. And if I am frivolous, I'm responsible for it. So
Yes.
and when you become responsible for your frivolity and for everything, then you can have fun, real fun. You know,
Oh, love it.
you can really live. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
I'm telling you, if you are listening to this episode, this is what you have to look forward to after this menopause mess. It's
And
so,
during, if you're
say more.
aware, it's it's the being unaware that this is what is happening. If you know that, if you can know that this is what you're going through, then you can seek out people like yourself to educate you. You can seek out remedies, and not necessarily chemical things. You can just relax, self care. You know,
Hmm.
understanding this is not his fault. Less divorces would happen, you know, less, I mean, we would change society. Because I think um, the patriarchy, the system of patriarchy, not only oppresses women, it oppresses the men because
Sure it does.
they can't be fully free. They have three
Mhm.
emotions they can act out of, and they're not the best. I mean, they're anger and silence and
Mhm.
stoicism and but I think if that that kind of mindset, that masculine feminine polarity were eliminated, and I'm not talking about roles. I'm just talking about mind psychologically. You can
Mhm.
a man can cry, a man can feel happy, he can smile, he can do everything a human being does and still be a man, still
Mhm.
be masculine, but even be more of a man because you're more of a human, you know? So I'm
Mhm.
not putting down men at all.
Mm-mm.
This is, I'm celebrating the possibility of relationships and men understanding women because a lot of men have seen this film and have thanked me. Oh, now I understand my wife. You know, she kicks off the sheets. I want them on me. You know
You can
why?
have them.
Or even when I was teaching, I came in as a guest to speak in front of a class, and one guy, and as I was sharing part of my story, one of the students said, about 21, 19 years, oh, I think that's what my mom's is going through. I'm gonna have to
Yep.
look that up because she used to be cool.
She used to be cool. Now she hot all the time. And you're like, yes, that's exactly what your mom is
That's
going
it.
through.
Yes. She doesn't mean to yell at you
No.
like this, but she's
And
like this.
when she's through the transition, she will be so fly you won't even recognize
Yes.
her.
And as she goes through it, you know what I'm saying? If you're aware that I'm going through this, that I have a short fuse, I am going to sweat all night, I may not sleep, da 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 da, you can be responsible. How can we be responsible of what we're not aware of? And that's another thing. So you don't have to wait because menopause can take 10 to 12 years. You
Yep.
don't want to wait 12 years to
Nope.
be responsible. So you can be responsible at even before you start going through it
Yeah,
because you know it's
absolutely.
coming. You know these are the symptoms. Here are the people I can seek out to support me through this. If the largest demographic in the United States are women in some stage of menopause, then we have a whole support group.
We do.
Can you imagine, you know, one out of whatever many women, 6,000 women going into menopause every week?
Yep.
Can you, you start talking about it and
Yep.
all of a sudden you got a group around you.
Yeah.
So you got a
Yep.
support group. You've got women who want to know, who identify. So you don't have to go through it by yourself. You don't have
Yep.
to alienate your coworkers. You
Mm-mm.
don't have to throw up on your friends.
Mm-mm. No, no, and I think I love what you just said, and I think it's helpful context to understand too that not every woman will go through the experience of raising a child, but every woman that lives long enough will go through menopause.
Yes, and
So,
all the symptoms are different. They may be different for different women. Every
yeah,
woman is not going because women have said, "Well, I never had any hot flashes, and I don't think I've gone through it." And then she would, in the next breath, said, "You know, I haven't slept in 3 years." Well, that's what do you
that'll
think
do
that?
it, boo.
What do you think that is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Insomnia is a symptom.
Yes, yes, yes. And we take it personally. We go, oh, must be something I'm doing. I screwed it up somehow. I gotta figure it out. But it's such a soft place when I love what you said when you know it's coming, you have some preparation, you can take some responsibility. And the thing is we cannot wait for our doctors to lead on this because the doctors are decades behind. The research wasn't there. We were left out of the research. So it's not being taught in med school. I don't know if it is now. Hopefully it is
One
now.
hour, 1 hour.
Still, Jesus. So it's up to folks like you and me, Satori, to get out there and educate the women about it. And I thank you so much for sharing your story and the the fullness of the experience that you display in the film is just it's just glorious to watch. It's heartbreaking, it's inspiring, it's hilarious. Again, I love the parts where you sing. So maybe the concert bit is my favorite part. Can you pick a favorite? I don't know. But I loved every part of it. Thank you so much for bringing this beautiful film to the world.
Thank you for having me and for me to be able to speak about it with you, who is astute on the subject in the medical part. And I appreciate and I congratulate
Thank
you
you.
and praise you for being in this field and being of support to women because you are definitely vital.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
Yep.
so appreciate that. I'll just drink that all in. Where can people go and find the film to watch it?
Well, you can visit my website, satorishakoor.com. There's a link tree there, and you can find me everywhere. If you're in Canada, you can see it via YouTube. Uh, and if you're in the United States or anywhere else, you can see it. You can see it on Apple TV Plus, Amazon, or Google TV.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect. And your website again, say that for us one more time.
satorishakoor.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your soul with us in the confessions, but also today with the show. Now, I have a final question I ask all my guests, if I may
Okay.
please have some fun with this.
Yes.
Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, I would tell my younger self, just keep living into your dream. Have your considerations, but the win is taking the action.
Oh, God, I'm telling you, that's a mic drop. That's a boom. I'm so glad I asked. Sattorii Shakoor, thank you for joining me on the
Thank
Not Your
you.
Mother's Menopause podcast.
Thank you.
The information and other content provided in this show, or in any linked materials, is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.